History was made this past weekend at Hickory Motor Speedway. ARCA would debut at the track in front of a standing room-only crowd. Notable drivers like George Siciliano, Derek Nealon, Landon S. Huffman, and Destiny Spurlock would all take to the track. They would all unfortunately be second fiddle to Max Reeves in the 18 car, until a late charge from the 77 of Tristan McKee would take him to the front. Ultimately, it would be one last restart where the 77 would be able to hold off the 18 and secure the win. Today we want to talk a little bit about what all went down at the debut of Hickory 200. So join us, Southeast Red Rats, while we break down everything that happened at the debut of Hickory 200. First off, a little about the track. Hickory Motor Speedway is a 1/3 mile asphalt oval located in central North Carolina. The banking of the track is about 14 degrees in the first turns and about 12 degrees through 3 and 4. The listed seating capacity is about 9,500 fans, but tonight we were probably closer to 1,100. The track hosts a variety of races, from weekly races to big events like the ARCA and Cars Tour as one off. I'm going to do a little bit of live commentary for the Carolina Pro Late Model race here. We're just watching them get restarted. All in all, it was kind of just like any other, Carolina Pro Late Mod race that we've been to run, or any late model race for that matter. That's not to say that it was bad by any stretch of the imagination. On the contrary, it was really, really awesome to see. It almost seemed like these guys, since they have tons of experience at Hickory Motor Speedway, were getting a hold of the track a little bit better than the ARCA, especially right off the gate, firing right off. They were right on the money. Where it took the ARCA guys quite a little bit of time to... Oh, I said right on the money, and then that guy spins. But basically, it took the ARCA guys a little bit of time to get, up to grips with, dealing with the bumps on the circuit and the low grip. Everybody was filing in, so I decided to go ahead and get up on the fence and just see what I could see from there. I saw a lot of different stuff, actually. There was a lot of situations where the cars would get loose coming off the corner. Coming off, they'd hit a bump or just, something would unsettle them and they'd get loose. From these angles, it was actually really cool to see. They kind of used two different lanes in this series. I didn't see a lot of the cars use the apron like we would see later on in the ARCA race. They would paint the white line as much, but they wouldn't really go below it. And I think that's just due to they didn't really want to bottom out their cars or upset their cars or anything like that. This kind of bright green or bright yellow car, I think it's the 97. He had kind of an eventful race we'll see in a few minutes. All in all, I, to be honest, had just shown up at the track. Here he is again. Had just shown up at the track, so I wasn't really able to get a good gauge of, who our key players in this race and stuff were. And in fact, later on, the race kind of ended abruptly because it was on a time restraint. I didn't even realize it was on the right flag lap, so I cut and was prepared for the next lap, and race is over. So I'm not even really sure who won. I was making my way back to the seats and all that when they were doing all that interview, and I just didn't catch it. But, so I guess if just let us know in the comments if you were there, or maybe if you see online who won. But anyways, here's a spin from the 97. This was quite an interesting moment. He, clutched it and let it roll down the track. Then he would rev the engine a few times and try and engage reverse. Unfortunately, the car just... I don't know if it ever engages. Some guy shouted at one point, it doesn't have reverse, and I think the car wouldn't engage with reverse. I think it has a reverse gear. I think there is a reverse gear in the car. It just didn't engage, because you can actually hear the gearbox trying to engage, and it just doesn't go. So they would eventually get out and try and push this car back on track, but this was probably about like a 5-minute interruption with this car. That was kind of it was, you don't want to say funny, because none of this was funny. These guys work really hard on these cars, but it's kind of one of those things that you see at local short track racing. It's part of the event. It is. It's truly part of the event, because we're lapping under yellow, and you just see a bunch of guys pushing on a car, and eventually, he gets it fired back up, and he's back in the race, and there's, not much more to it than that. Anyways, enough babbling. We got eventually restarted here. I tried to get some more, just unique shots of everything. The track was really full the whole night. There was tons of fans. It was a really great night for the track in terms of just visibility and in terms of getting people in seats. Unfortunately, there were a few moments where the concessions was a little bit underprepared. I got one story to share where apparently we were going through the concessions and apparently they had run out of $1 bills in the drawer. And this had led to the people in the concessions kind of just not really knowing what to do. So they just started taking $1 for the tips and they had a cash runner. And apparently at one point, one of the concessions workers put both hands on their heads and just let out an exasperated sigh. So it was definitely a lot of hard work from everybody going into it, and it was definitely like a huge undertaking for the track, and a huge undertaking for everybody at the track. But ARCA is a league that hosts races across the United States across 3 different divisions: the ARCA West, ARCA East, and the ARCA National Series. The cars that are allowed to run are former NASCAR Cup Series cars. The league offers an alternate option for drivers of all experience levels to compete on tracks of all kinds, short tracks to the super speedway. For the ARCA series, we were watching a few different drivers. Landon S. Huffman is a local track hero, where Destiny Spurlock was set to become the first black woman to ever compete in an ARCA series race. And George Siciliano is a YouTube legend known as LS George or Squirrel McNutt online. Basically, Max Reeves the entire night was just firing off amazing. He just had the perfect setup for this track. I don't know if it was something to do with everyone else was struggling over the bumps or something with that grip level, but he was just amazing on the fire off. Everyone else was just really honestly struggling until the end of the race. I think there was a mid-race break where everybody got to make changes. The 14 car, he went in early. Talked to him on the grid. He said something about engine on fire. I don't know if he meant oh yeah, we're on fire sarcastically, or if he literally had the engine fire. Really not sure what's going on there. But yeah, the 18 again just firing off amazing here. It's just crazy. I think it's a Joe Gibbs car, and it's crazy. It's like they're still using setups that they were using when these cars were in the Cup Series almost. And that's how dominant it was compared to everybody else. But I think that mid-race break, like I was talking about earlier, really gave everybody a good opportunity, especially 77, 79, and the 9 car. Gave a really good opportunity to make some much-needed adjustments, adjust the tire pressures and all that, and make sure that the car... This track was going to change. I think they had set up their cars for the later run, those cars like the 77 and the 9, had set them up because, anticipating the track changing. But I think they really kind of over-anticipated that. This was such a low-grip track, not very tacky. There was nothing. It was you were very sliding. It was sliding the whole night. You could see everybody, both series, cars, or not the car series, excuse me, the late model series and the ARCA series was very slidey. But even still, with all that, we'd still see a lot of lanes being used. And this actually, we would see the ARCA series go routinely on the apron. They would go beneath that yellow line, get on the apron, and use the apron to kind of rotate the car. Try and get you're turning in and you got the last 5 or 6 degrees of rotation, and they just get it done on the apron. A few of the cars were going super high. A few times I'd see maybe the 18 and the 66 went really, really high up in that third groove. That was not too often. It was pretty dirty up there, I think, by the end of the race. There was quite, not a lot of caution. There were cautions every now and again, but they weren't sweeping the track routinely, so it got pretty dirty up there. And that's where you make time on this track. These are the lower banking turns that we're looking at now. And making time on the higher grooves, like you can see that they're doing up there. It's where you want to go, and there's a little bit extra track asphalt that they give you to work with, but it's not guaranteed. You really need to have the right car. It's about having, when you've got a car that's right, you can run high. If you got a car that's not handling well, you're going to be on the apron pretty much. And that's what we saw a lot of the night. Here we see the 13 that had some tire rub. Thought it was an engine issue at first. It was just tire rub. We didn't get any yellow for that or anything. Earlier we saw the 0 spin. His spin was, I think I talked about it. It's you expect everybody, he spins once he's out of contention, you expect everybody to leave, and it was quite the opposite. As long as he was in the race, as long as that car was running, people, cheering for him. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of cut out the live commentary here and let the race speak for itself, and then, maybe spur some moments here and there, but, yeah, just enjoy. Throughout the night and all the festivities, we would have lots of different fans filing in and out of the stands to get to the bathroom or the concessions. This is normally no problem, but again, the close quarters made it a little bit difficult for everyone to maneuver safely. At one point, a drunken man fell into the trash can next to us, only to spring back up and say, "I just fell in the trash." A few minutes before that, a drunken woman said to me, "I just want to say that I appreciate what you're doing. Art is important." I'm not really sure what else to add, other than that art is indeed important. Anyways, the racing was a little bit muted at first. This was mainly due to the fact that these drivers had never, or these cars I should say, had never driven in earnest on this track before, and it was a little bit low grip on the track. When I was on the track before the race, there wasn't a lot of rubber on the track. It wasn't very tacky, but at the same time, it wasn't very dusty either. It was a very clean grip, or a clean racing surface, I should say. Early on, fan favorite George Squirrel McNutt Siciliano would spin off at the second turn and bring the car through the pit lane. Fortunately, he didn't sustain any damage, but unfortunately, he would go two laps down. At this point, I expected a bunch of people to get up and file out of the stands, but fair on them, they stayed all the way until the end. Destiny Spurlock was holding her own on debut. She started 8th and would eventually finish 7th. She would be as high as 5th or 6th at one point and only was lapped once or twice. A fantastic debut. At first, when I was up near the fence, there weren't too many fans, but as time went on, more and more people would file in until it was nearly packed for the final few laps. I just wanted to share a few stories about what I saw while I was up there before we close out. There were a few country boys that wanted to show their appreciation to George Siciliano and their disappreciation for Max Reeves. They would line the fence. At first it was one or two of them, and they would show Max Reeves that he was number 1 with hand signals, and then immediately after they would take off their hats as a sign of salute for George Siciliano's Zero car. This drew enough of a reaction from their gang to warrant creating a routine of conveying signals as a group to the drivers. What started out as simple hand signs became a form of communication, if you will, between the drivers and the fans. At one point, it was either George Siciliano in the Zero or the spotter for the Zero that noticed what the fans were doing, and under yellow, the Zero, unfortunately I didn't get any video of this, but you just have to trust me, the Zero came by, clutched his car, and gave the fans 2 boots of throttle revving his engine, and I must say, these gentlemen's faces lit up like it was Christmas Day when this happened. They slapped hands and started high-fiving and smiling with glee. And in that moment, I felt like the Zero could run the track backwards under green, and everyone in the crowd would still cheer him on. But in the end, if it puts butts in seats, I'm really not complaining. It is just interesting to see. One more story to tell. Like I said earlier, the security is a little bit lax at the track, so they were like banning like knives and stuff, which is not fair. But at one point, they had also the nacho cheese had like run out, so they were trying to open up a thing of nacho cheese. And at some point, a cowboy had said like, "Oh, I've got a knife in my car. Why don't you let me go grab it? I promise I'll put it back in my car. I want to go grab it so we can open up this nacho cheese because I want some nacho cheese. I paid for it. Come on." All in all, the race was really good. It started off a little bit slow, but with 50 to go, it became a real slugfest, a Saturday night fight, if you will. The 77 would win to a standing ovation, while the 18 driver Max Reeves would be collectively booed by nearly everyone present. He did compare himself to Kyle Busch at one point, which was a little bit odd. As he was getting booed by the crowd, he would compare himself saying, "This is like that one Kyle Busch interview." I couldn't find any interviews wherein it was exactly the same. There was one interview where Kyle Busch said, "If you don't like it, don't watch," but it wasn't exactly the same, so a little bit confused on that one for Max Reeves. But all in all, the whole night was kind of overwhelming in the best possible way. Tons of fans, packed stands, good racing, and a little bit of history along the way. It was a great night for ARCA and Hickory, and we hope to see them return next year. And with that, Southeast Rev Rats will be returning next week, and the Rockingham Speedway will give you an update of what goes on with the O'Reilly race and maybe a little bit more from the ARCA series. So with that, stay tuned to Southeast Rev Rats for more, and love one another.